Smithy, Dolphins versus the Rabbitohs Thursday, 7:50 at Suncorp Stadium. That hurts to hear, but anyway. Dolphins team news. Jesse Bromwich returns from illness. Jared Wallace is out with a concussion. Robert Jennings replaces Edric Lee on the wing. And Rabbitohs team news, Alex Johnson returns on the wing. Jai Arrow returns at prop in place of Tavita Totola. How do you see this playing out, mate?
Is this the first game Jai Arrow is playing for the season?
I think so.
For the Rabbits, playing first grade. Yeah, he's had a calf injury, I think it was. May have been some sort of leg injury. So great to see Jai Arrow back in playing first grade again. It'll make a huge difference to that Rabbitohs side. Although they had a big victory on the weekend. Interesting matchup, this one. Really interesting. They're heavy favourites, the Rabbitohs, after the big win against the Bulldogs. I really don't see it that clearly, though. I just think that, I mentioned earlier about the Rabbitohs, the scoreline that they put on the Bulldogs. They're playing against a side that, then they were half a reserve grade side. A lot of those guys were put out of reserve grade up, playing up in a much tougher competition like the NRL. I don't know. This Dolphins team, they keep delivering, Kempy. They just keep delivering. So I'm not in a position really to write them off. Particularly with Jesse Bromwich returning, they've got a great lineup. I think Kafusi's back too. Felice Kafusi, I think he might be back from suspension. Am I right in saying that? I think he might be playing as well. So, particularly if he's back, they've got one of their stronger lineups of the season. Of course, O'Sullivan's still out. But I think this will be a much closer game than what the bookmakers are saying.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree. I think the Dolphins, they've moved past the point of, they're just winning off passion and the fact that they're newer club into, hang on a sec, maybe there's some principles and standards that this team is set as a squad that they refuse to back down on. Essentially, they've had one bad game.
Yeah.
One bad game, really, which is incredible for a new club. And every week they remind us that rugby league is a simple game. You run hard, you tackle hard, you try to complete. You win most games, then you lose. Whereas we get so overcomplicated in set plays and, need to do this and need to do that. And I just think that the Dolphins have reminded everyone that it's just all about ripping in. It really is. Because everyone that gets to NRL is a good footy player.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
So when people go, they don't have the roster to score points, it's like, these are good footy players. They would have, first of all, every footy player, most of them anyway, would have played the opposition that they're playing growing up. So they're as good as those guys, or at least good enough to get a win on them every now and then. And I think the Dolphins are a reminder. In regards to Rabbitohs, even though they had a big win on the weekend, they're notoriously slow starters or they go on runs, but I am just a bit they've been really unfortunate with injuries. So you have to remember that they had the hard start to the season on the draw, but I do think that this is a must-win, non-negotiable game for the Rabbitohs. If they want to be in that top four, they need to start stringing them together now.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And they've got the team to do that. I think is a really big game for is the Dolphins' back three. So the hammer, Tabuai, he's coming off a huge game in his return to Townsville after leaving the Cowboys last year. But Isako and Robert Jennings on the wing, they've got huge games defensively. Now, Tabuai at fullback, he's the one that's marshalling, the defensive line. He's telling players where to match up on the Rabbitohs attacking players. He's got a huge game to do that because I tell you what the Rabbitohs are really good at. They're very good at disguising their set plays. So they can put a half out the back. So like a Cody Walker or an Ilias, they hide behind the ruck and then they shift late to one side and create extra men. So being able to identify that and get your defensive line set and ready to go. And then also I said back three, you could add the centers in there as well into this defensive game that I spoke about. So Ewan Aiken and Branko Lee being able to defend the set plays that they're that they're going to see coming from the Rabbitohs. It's their strength. Now, they've got a great forward pack. There's no doubt about that. The Rabbitohs, they got big men. They run hard. They play the ball fast at times. But it's when they get momentum and they get time to put those set plays on where Walker, Ilias, Latrell Mitchell get deep into your defensive line and just be able to create space for their centres and wingers. That's where the big test will come for the Dolphins this weekend.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. I can't wait for this. I think it's going to be a cracking match. And Wayne's up against an old club.
Ooh.
You always like that.
He'll have them fired up, mate.
Yeah, and it's cool because he left essentially on good terms with Demetrio. Demetrio is his protege.
Ah, yes, of course.
So it's a little bit different to, say, other situations where, they didn't necessarily get along. So I wonder whether... I mean, it's probably why we haven't seen any blow-ups in the media with any back and forth.
Nothing. Been very quiet.
Very quiet.
And sorry, I got that wrong. Kafusi's 1 more week, isn't he?
Yeah, 1 more week because he fought it.
Yep.
But initially, he was on the 3 weeks,
That's
so
right.
he would have been back if he didn't fight it. Sharkies versus Roosters, Friday, 6 p.m, PointsBet Stadium. Sharks team news, Graham and Kofusi both return in place of Dale Finucane and Toby Rudolph, who are out. Toby Rudolph, who was out. Roosters team news, Tedesco returns at fullback, Lodge returns on the bench, Fletcher Baker is out with a concussion, Drew Hutchison moves to the bench, and Jake Turpin is out.
Big names in for the Roosters. Lodge and Tedesco back.
Pretty sure Crichton's back as well, isn't he?
Is he?
Oh, reserve grade, okay.
He's playing reserve grade. I think they're starting to get a few back. I think Satili Tupanua played on the weekend for the reserve grade side. Is it the Bears? Is that their Reggie's team?
Yep.
North Sydney Bears. I think, so Crichton's playing this week, reserve grade, great to hear. I think they had other couple of players playing Reggie's too, which they could get back in the next sort of fortnight. Great news for the Roosters. I think they really would have had a hard look at themselves after that loss to the Storm, and very disappointed with the way they played. They're a much better footy side than that, as we know. Sharkies, Wade Graham returns, of course, Oregon Kafusi. Look, I'm happy to back the Roosters in this one. If they get it right, I think Tedesco at the back, it helps out, particularly Walker and Keary. I think he just settles them a little bit with him being at the back, just being on those set plays that they train all week and they know are coming. I think with him being back in particular and the work rate that he produces through the middle of the field, I think they could be too strong for the Sharkies.
I agree, mate. I think the Roosters will be really disappointed with last week's game. Outside of the Rabbitohs, and the Rabbitohs haven't been playing the best footy, essentially Storm were the first real test for the Roosters in regards to top-tier teams that can win a comp. And unfortunately, they just really came up lacking. And look, I understand they had some injuries out, but I think the Roosters' standards are so high because they've set them themselves. They're a good side. They're a great side. And so I think they're going to come out absolutely firing. It's a massive test for Sharks, though.
Yeah.
Got to sort their defence out.
Yeah.
They have to. Otherwise, it's just going to be a long year.
Well, mate, it's been a part of their game. They were so good last year.
Yeah.
So good last year. And it's a bit like the Cowboys. Their defence was outstanding last year. I think those two teams finished in the top 4 as far as like best defensive teams in the competition. And they're both struggling to find that form, when they're defending their line this year, which is, resulted in a few losses for each of them. But they're coming off the bye. They should be fresh. 3 out of 4 sides, or it might be 4 out of 5 sides have won off the back of a bye. The only team to lose off the back of a bye was Penrith. So funnily enough. So, the trend is saying that the team that come off the bye go on to win their return match. Be interesting to see how much energy they come out of the blocks with, the Sharkies.
Hasn't the bye come at the perfect time for a guy like Nico Hines? Like, I know he was back and playing good footy, but just to make sure that the calf is good, not fatigued, gets a couple of games in, then has a week off. It's almost the perfect scenario. But yeah, like I think the Roosters with Tedesco at the back should get the job done. As I said, the Sharkies, it's got to start coming together because they're not. It's not like they've got this history with this squad of like, it's going to be a good guys. It's we're late starters. Towards the end of the year, we go on a charge. Whereas you look at the Rabbitohs, there is a history where they can go, you know what? Like, we'll come together. We'll go on a run. Whereas the Sharkies, it's like this whole new setup where they're going so well. It's quite new, and you just don't want to be chasing those points for top 4 mid-year.
No, that's right, mate. And you know, like they possibly if they don't get their wins coming soon, they may have their best player involved in Origin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's talk about Nico Hines being involved, possibly as a halves partner to Cleary. You know, not sure whether that will happen, but if he's not there, they're talking, you know, possibly a 14 and him being in the side. So, if they're missing him through Origin, if they don't bank some wins now, they'll be chasing their tail at the end.
Welcome back to the Captain's Run with the great Cameron Smith. Seagulls versus the Storm. Friday, 8 p.m. at 4 Pines Park. That sounds weird to say. It's rookie. Ruben Garrick, concussion. Carl Lawton, shoulder, are both out, replaced by Raymond Vunga and Aaron Woods. Cooper Johns has also been named at 5'8", with Schuster named on the reserves. KO Weeks goes back to the bench. Storm team news. Nick Meaney is out. Devastating. I thought he had the best game of his career on the weekend. Cam Munster moves to fullback. Pezzett starts in the halves alongside Jerome Hughes. How do you see this game playing out, Smithy?
Well, Manly need to improve, don't they? If they're a chance to match it with Melbourne, particularly if Melbourne turn up with the same mindset as what they did last week, which I think they will. I think they've half turned the corner after that, particularly after that loss to the Titans. I think that was really a moment where they went back to Melbourne and said, hey, listen, like we're not playing good football at all. We're not playing the style of football that we plan to play this year. And they just look a lot more settled and patient, particularly when they have the football in hands. They have an understanding of what they want to do at different moments in the game, different phases of the game. That's what I've seen, at least over the last couple of games that they've played. For Manly, they jumped out of the blocks hot, didn't they? They jumped out of the blocks hot, but they've hit a couple of stumbling blocks over the last couple of weeks. I guess the game where they finished with a draw against Newcastle, they scored 32 but couldn't put Newcastle away. That's probably where a few alarm bells would have been ringing. And then last week it all fell to pieces for them. So they're going to have to bounce back quickly, because if they don't, they could find themselves on the same sort of score line as what they did last week when they take on Melbourne.
Yeah, I Manly definitely need to bounce back quickly because, I think we spoke about it in regards to the night situation happened, and you go, ooh, it's almost like a confidence. It hits your confidence as a team that's considered a dark horse. You need all the confidence you can get, because as soon as something goes wrong, the same squad from last year starts looking at each other going, uh-oh, like, are we where we think we are? And then obviously they come out against the Penrith Panthers. And I said last week, it's a real opportunity for Manly to get that confidence back and go, you know what, we are who we think we are.
Yep.
And then they go out and get absolutely oosed. And it's like, oh, God.
Oosed.
Yeah, absolutely oosed. And so it is super important. Look, doesn't necessarily have to win the game, but they need to be competitive in this game, because if they get towed up again, then they really will start looking around the changing room going, oh, boys, are we where we were last year? Are we about to go on the same situation? Yeah. And, I would argue Broncos are in the same similar boat. Yeah, they're on top of the table, but if they have a couple of losses, I guarantee you they're going to start looking around the changing room going, uh-oh.
Here we go again.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the one thing for Manly is they can't second guess themselves on the approach that the Storm will have for this game. I think it's meant to be a little bit wet and wild on Thursday. On Friday in Sydney. So the Storm are going to bring the same approach to what they did last week in a rainy Melbourne game, where they just they didn't necessarily just tuck the ball under the arm and have 5 hit-ups and then kick. They were happy to spread the ball, but they played high-percentage football. So they didn't put each other under pressure. They weren't trying to force passes. They weren't trying to force offloads. They weren't trying to pass miracle passes at the line and put people through the line. There was just early ball, good use of the football still, but they got through their sets and they kicked well. and then they just smothered the opposition with defence. So there's no guessing. There shouldn't be any guessing at all from a Sea Eagles point of view the way the Storm are going to travel up to Sydney and play. It'll be almost replica of last week, and their key position players, they should expect a lot of pressure coming at them in a game played in conditions that are pretty tricky, because they understand that these conditions that you're playing when it's wet and it's a bit uncomfortable, if you can apply as much pressure on the opposition as you can, it increases your chances of winning.
Yeah, it's the Storm. I got a theory, Smithy, and
Right.
shoot it down.
Okay.
So you've got a young squad that I would assume a lot of them, it was their first Storm preseason, first or second.
Yep.
And we all know that if you're in your first Storm preseason, you go out, you have to work, you got to do the army camp, and it's a shock to the system. And I just wonder, was this young, newish Storm squad just a bit fatigued going into the round 1 and 2? Because the energy they're playing with now, it is I agree with you, they're doing all the right things, little things, but I just think the energy that they're playing with now, it's just different. It's just different to round 1.
Yeah. Well, you could probably, there's probably a handful of young guys experiencing their first Storm preseason, and it is tough, mate. Like, all preseasons are tough. Doesn't matter what club you're involved in, but notoriously Melbourne Storm, it's pretty brutal, and they don't just try and break you down physically. They try and break you down mentally. With some of the work that they do down there. So maybe there was a bit of a lag in sort of fatigue from those preseason weeks that they had leading into the season. But I would like to think that wasn't an issue early on. I just think that they weren't playing the style of footy that they'd practiced to play, and particularly, I think that the moment where the light bulb moment for them, and I know we've only played 6 rounds, but was when they come up here to the Titans, and then the coach post game questioned their care. Where was their care for their footy side? Where was their care for the football that they played? I think that was the moment, and that for me, it wasn't anything physical. It wasn't about their fitness or their fatigue or where they were at. It was more their attitude. Their attitude towards their footy. I know they were missing their big gun, Cam Munster, and he's made a huge difference. I think it showed the other night, mate, their most important player is Munster. There's no doubt about it. Although they've got, terrific players elsewhere, Harry Grant, of course, Jerome Hughes, Pappenhausen when he returns. They've got great players right across the park, but their key man is Munster. And I think their attitude just wasn't where it needed to be when you're playing at this level. I think they may have just gone out against the Titans thinking, well, we're the Storm, we'll pull on this jersey and we'll just need to take the field and we'll win the game, which it isn't the case.
Yeah, I remember last year there was this yarn around, because Munster was off contract, that Munster's not the most important player anymore.
Oh, please.
It's okay. Go and watch the game on the weekend. He's so good. Now, on to the Warriors versus Cowboys, Saturday, 3 p.m, Mount Smart Stadium. Tomato Martin, leg. Wade Egan, concussion, both out. Replaced by Dylan Walker, Freddie Lussick. Tohu Harris returns from knee injury at lock. Cowboys, Jeremiah Nanai returns at second row. Griffin Neem out for 2 weeks due to throat injury. Murray Tuolangi returns on the wing for Brendan Elliott. How do you see this game playing out, Smithy?
Mate, I've got the Warriors at home.
Really?
I'm just not seeing anything from the Cowboys at the moment that you could really sit down and go, I'm going to back them on a big travel game like this one.
I just reckon, surely Peyton and all the boys are stinging.
Well, they have
the
to.
loss
Well,
last week.
you'd think so, wouldn't you? You would think so. But, Nanai comes back, which is a big in. But, mate, Griffin Neem, he's been one of the standouts for the Cowboys.
I know.
He's been one of the standouts, and now he's out, throat injury. Taulagi coming back as well, huge in. He's a State of Origin winger, of course, so that's a big inclusion. But for mine, Tohu Harris, hopefully he does get on the field. He's been named the last couple of weeks, but I think last minute ruled out. I'm talking day of the game, day before the game. Dylan Walker and Lussick back in the side as well. I just like their form. I like their form. I know they didn't get a win on the weekend, but I like some of the things they're doing. And the team that are out of form at the moment are the Cowboys. Not on their own in the competition. I'm just saying in this matchup, the team out of form is the Cowboys. And it's going to take a huge effort for them to go over to New Zealand and come up against the Warriors team that are going to be well-backed. Saturday, 3 o'clock in the Arvo. They're going to have a big crowd. As you know, mate, you played there. It's always a tough road trip.
Yeah, with the Cowboys, the first couple of games, people saying, oh, they've had a lackluster start. And I was like, I disagree. I think they've actually been okay, rah-rah. But I've gone from I think they're going okay to or they're not going great to I'm starting to get worried because they don't look like the same team as last year in regards to the way they're playing. Like they had such a gritty edge to them last year and just a never say die kind of attitude. Very Townsville Cowboys kind of team. And so the only reason I'm going to go Cowboys is because even though the Warriors have they're in form, they've shown a lot of fight.
Yep.
They've leaked over 30 points two weeks in a row.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm sure the Cowboys have probably leaked the same amount of points as well. But I just think it's going to get to the point where the Cowboys just say enough is enough. And look, maybe it's one game where they just turn up and blow a team off the park.
Yep.
I just think they're going to be stinging too much from last week, and I'll get the win.
Well, mate, you got to remember it was only 1 month ago these two teams met. It's crazy to think that.
I know.
And they actually beat the Cowboys at home.
I know, Smithy. I know. Maybe it's a Queenslander in me. I don't know.
Mate, I'd love to see the Cowboys win too because I tipped them to bloody win the premiership, but I don't know. I don't know. I just think the Warriors might get this one playing on their home turf.
Okay, let's get on to it. Knights versus the Panthers, Saturday, 5:30 at McDonald Jones Stadium. Knights team. Phoenix Crossland moves to hooker. Jaden Brayley and Tyson Gamble for Jaden Brayley. Tyson Gamble returns in the halves. I thought they said Jaden Brayley returns in the halves. I was like, damn, that's a quick recovery, the poor fella. I mean, how devastating for so he did his ACL 2 years ago, did his Achilles, and he's done his ACL again. And it's to a bloke that he's not cutting corners. He's the toughest of the toughest. Now, onto Panthers team, no changes. No changes to the 17 that beat Manly. I want to know what their program is because it's the best program in the comp. It's incredible.
It's fit.
Incredible. Yeah.
They're fit, well prepared. Have been for a long time now. They've just been so dominant. This is Newcastle's 4th game at home in the last 5 weeks. Why are they not using? Why are they got so many home games? Is it maybe
as a Broncos fan, I can't really talk.
Well, maybe they're in the same. Are they in the same situation with the Women's World Cup coming up? Are they using McDonald Jones Stadium for a couple of World Cup games, maybe? And they lose. They lose some home games at the end. Maybe that's what's happening in the NRL. Although Brizzy, no, they're not leaving Queensland for a long time. Look, I think been happy with the way the Knights have fought. That's as good as they played in a long time on the weekend. Like they dug in, they fought. Some great footy being played. Dom Young, how good's Dom Young? Such a big loss for Newcastle, but he was their best player last year. He for whatever he was in reserve grade only a few weeks ago. Then come back and he scored 1,000 tries in a couple of games, and he's just leading them around the park beautifully. Plays with so much energy every game. I just think the Penrith Panthers will be too strong for Newcastle. Simple as that. It's a pretty straightforward. With all due respect to Newcastle, with no changes to the 17, I think they've sort of found their little mojo. They found their groove again, Penrith. And if they turn up and play this in a similar style to what they played last week, this could be a big win for them.
Yeah, the Penny Panthers, unfortunately, fight only gets you so far for the Knights. And when you get up a team against Penny Panthers, you need more than fight because they're just so clinical. I agree with you, mate. I have absolutely loved the fight the Newey Knights have shown over the last couple of weeks. Shown some real grit, some real character. Been through so many injuries to key players, and they just keep, especially the last 2 weeks, they've just turned up and kept having a go. So I love that. But when I look at this Penny Panthers side, they're like, when you look at across the board, there's an argument to be made that each player in each position, outside of maybe one or two, is the best in the comp.
Yeah.
Like Like
in their particular position, yeah.
yeah, like on 1 week, Taruva form wise, he'll get picked as winger of the comp, like as in of that week. So winger of round 5.
Yep.
To'o, best winger in the comp. Crichton, Tungor. Then you go into the Hoskins is breakout season. Liam Martin, Australian player.
Yep.
Cleary. Yo, like it just doesn't stop. Fisher Harris, Leota. These guys are all arguably at times best in position. And so when it clicks, it is just unstoppable. I think it's I know I say it quite regularly, but when I look at situations like that, and let's say I'm at the Knights and I'm one of the boys or the coaching staff, I would look at it as a real opportunity. Like this is a chance to just let's do something here, boys. Yeah. Let's not be overawed by anything. Let's have the chip on our shoulder like the Raiders did to the Broncos last week.
Yeah, mate, I'm with you. There's nothing better than being that team that really no one gives a lot of hope to. So, what have you got to lose? You've got nothing to lose because there's no expectation on you to go out and win that game of football. So just get out there and give it your best shot. Wouldn't it be such a fantastic feeling? And I experienced it on the other side. So when I was playing for a Melbourne Storm side that was, similarly dominant to the Penrith team that we're watching now, if you got beaten by any other team in the competition, they would celebrate it like they'd won the premiership. And we're only in like we are now, like a round 7, round 10, round 15, whatever it was. So, enjoy the challenge. That's what our game's about. That's what sport's about. It's about challenges. It's about, matching yourself up against the best and really seeing how far you can take them.
Mate, and I think with the Newey Knights forward pack, get a bit of chip on your shoulder. Say, you know what I mean? Almost say, who do these guys think they are? They're the big dogs. Everyone thinks they're you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need that to motivate yourself, get you a bit of kind of, I guess, not hatred. Hatred's a strong word, but almost just an anger towards the opposition.
Yeah.
For example, are you telling me that Raiders forward pack didn't go up to Brisbane going, who do these boys think they are?
Absolutely.
That's exactly what they did.
Stood up to them. Absolutely.
And so I think the Knights, although I have the Panthers winning, I think it's an opportunity for the Knights. Panthers, what more is there to say? Seriously, what more is there to say? They are absolutely incredible. But let's get to our next game. Preview of the round, thanks to Suncorp, building a more resilient Queensland. That's thanks to the Suncorp spirit. It's the Titans v the Broncos, Saturday, 7:30 p.m. at the Seabus Stadium, Super Stadium. It's called the Almost Cam Smith Cup. The Almost Cam Smith Cup.
What does that mean?
Almost. We almost signed you. Both of us.
Oh, man. I didn't know where you were going with that one. No, I like it, though. Okay. I like it. Almost Cam Smith Cup. Righto. Gotcha.
Titans team news. Foz is out. Foz returns to Sexton. Mid-season signing, Super League former Tigers prop. Thomas McAlay has been named on the bench. Flegler is out with concussion. Jensen starts at prop. Kobe Hetherington joins the bench for the first time this year.
Big out. Tommy Flegler, he's been one of the best props in the competition. Big out for the Bronx. Although Corey Jensen starts at prop, so he's been a regular in their team over the last couple of seasons. Great to see Kobe Hetherington getting another crack in first grade, first game of the year, of course. I can't believe the luck for Toby Sexton. I just cannot get over that. Fractured wrist. When did that news break? Because he played that entire game.
Yeah, 100%. Did he do it at the end? Did he do it in the middle?
Did he go home and jump on his skateboard or something and he was going down the street like Joey did after he won the premiership? And he'd come off the skateboard. What was happening?
He was knocking back too many bloke beers, mate. Fractured his wrist. There you go. Buy it at all bottle shops. Go to a store located on bloke.shop.
Was it? Did he fracture it by lifting too many? Or did he
too many.
Or he fell over afterwards from drinking too many?
Mate, of course he drank responsibly.
Yeah, of course. You always have to. Of course
he did.
Yes. Righto, let's get to this game. I think that the Titans take a lot of confidence, I think, into this one. And again, it's big brother, little brother, Kempy, of course. So, talking about, standing up to the opposition team and particularly the forward pack, we spoke with Dave Fafita at the top of the show, and he spoke about the challenge of coming up against the Broncos, particularly guys like Payne Haas and Patrick Carrigan and these guys that are high profile representative players. It's a big test. It's a big test for the Titans forward pack in particular. to get out there and match it. But I've really liked the way that particularly, Tino Fa'asua Malawi, Mo Fotuaika have really, taken themselves to games and really, enforced themselves physically on the opposition. What's stopping them from doing against, possibly one of the strongest forward packs in the competition in the Broncos? If they can do that, particularly with Kieran Foran back, I think they're every chance of knocking the Broncos off. And still, as you said, Kempy, like this is your team, so you could analyse this a bit better for us. Still yet to see the Broncos come up against a team and get out there and actually do a job on them, properly. Like, I know they've had a couple of big score lines, but it hasn't been an 80. I don't know if we've seen an 80-minute performance. Maybe round one. Sorry, I apologise. Maybe round one.
Even round one, last 20 minutes, we dropped about 3 balls. Selwyn Cobbo nearly dropped the ball.
Oh, that's
Corey
right.
Oates dropped the ball coming out of it.
That's right. So, that's I think that's what we're all waiting for, aren't we? Is to see that complete 80-minute performance from a Broncos side.
Yeah, just quickly with the Titans, what I'm doing is I'm sitting down with the Titans and I'm going, all right, Fotuaika, who's your opposition? Jensen. Are you a better player than him?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, it's not out of the world. Like, you're an Origin player.
Yeah.
Then I'd sit down, I go, Tino, you and Payne Haas nearly punched on an Origin. Like, let's do that, but without obviously the punching.
Make it
you know
personal.
What I'm saying?
Make it personal.
Tino, every time he gets the ball, if I don't see you shooting up to smash, to have a go, I'll be filthy. David Fafita against Kurt Catewell. Can you do a job on Catewell? You've got the potential. Joe Simpson versus Ricky, even match. Isaac Liu versus Carrigan. I'd say, Isaac, this is a huge opportunity for you to go at the premier, 13/forward.
Yep.
And so, and then you got Randall versus Walters. I would look at them and go, boys, everyone's talking about this Brisbane forward pack. Are they that much stronger on paper than us? Honestly.
Yeah.
And challenge them and say, let's dominate the Broncos forwards, because without them, the Broncos, it's all around the forward pack for the Broncos. It really is.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd be saying. Look, I'm going to go, I'm backing the Broncos. I don't care if we win by 1 or by 2. I just want to see 80% completion rate.
Yep.
And I'm happy. I'm happy with that. Time now for Raiders v Dragons, Sunday, 2 p.m, GIO Stadium. Raiders team news. Jackie Wyden, Joe Tarpane, Nick Kotrick all return for the Raiders. Jordan Rapana, Peter Holler and Brad Schneider all drop out. Dragon news. Zane Musgrove replaces suspended Francis Molo, while Tautau Moga replaces Makele Ravalawa. On the wing, how do you see this playing out, Smithy?
Look, I think the Raiders will be full of confidence coming off that win against the Broncos. Plus, they get Jackie Whiten back, Joseph Tarpane, of course, and Nick Kotrick. Playing at home, there's a lot of pressure on the Dragons at the moment, isn't there? Really. Like, with every loss, I think the pressure builds. Although they were a bees away from winning that game against the Titans. Like, if they make one more tackle, 2 more tackles possibly, they win the game. And they're not feeling the heat like they are this week. Like, as soon as they lose that game, the questions start again. How many games does Anthony Griffin have left? Is he under pressure? Will he retain his job after this year? Will he have a job by the end of this year? Yeah, it's just funny how those small moments add up and they build pressure. So really, I think depending on how they handle this week and the sort of the noise, and if they can put aside the noise that's happening outside of their footy club, will determine how they turn up and play this week. Because there was a lot to like about their game against the Titans. A lot to like about it. I thought their defence. They showed a fair bit of resilience in defence. They fought hard. They actually used the football. They promoted the football a fair bit. But Ben Hunt, I'm telling you, his game on the weekend was unbelievable, really. Like, I know he was involved in that last play where Toby Sexton went through, but goodness me, like, up until that point, he was everywhere for the Dragons. If he doesn't play, they get beat by 40.
Yeah.
But I think with the Raiders travelling to Brisbane, beating the Broncos without a couple of their stars, in Tarpany and Whiten, I think they return home and they make that count, the return of those boys, and they win it.
Yeah, I think the Raiders get the job done because you almost, if you're Ricky, obviously you've got those massive ins and that helps a lot. But Ricky can say to the boys, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is how we play. You've proven it now. So I don't want to hear, I'm sure he isn't hearing excuses, but, I don't want to hear the roster. We don't have this, Jackie Whiten's out or whatever. We have proven that this is the way we play Raiders footy. Now we need to do that every single week. And every time that we don't do it, we're letting ourselves down. At home, they've got the game plan now. They've got the points of where they need to be in matches in regards to the defense, the intensity, and so they can build off last week's win. I think it's what's also really impressive about last week's win for Raiders. If you go and look at the stats, their completion rate was still only about 72%.
Yeah.
So they didn't even play the best they could play.
Yeah.
They just ripped in.
Yeah. And like you said, mate, like that's the team that we all know, and it's actually when they're playing their best footy, is when they play that style of footy. So if they have that same attitude and they actually complete high, they'll be very hard to beat.
Now on to the Eels versus Bulldogs Sunday 4 p.m. Combank Stadium. Junior Paulo returns at prop. Widamu Greg moves to the bench. Jack Murchie drops out. Doggies kick out. Raymond Faitala Mariner. Tavita Pungo Jr. all return. Well, not kick out. Kick out doesn't return.
No,
but the rest of them return to the starting side. Braden Burns replaces Josh Adokar on the wing. How do you see this playing out, Smithy?
Yeah, well, I think now with the news that we learned during the show that Kikau has got picked up a long-term injury. Although they Pangai Jr. and Faitala Mariner are big ins for them. I think Josh Adokar not being there will hurt a bit. Just his speed and his ability to that X factor out on the wing is going to play a part particularly over the next couple of months. He's going to be out for at least 8. So Eels, they did what they had to do last week. Just snuck past the West Tigers. Could have gone either way that game. I couldn't believe the ending, but great to see some exciting footy over the opening month and a half. But I think the Eels will be too good in this one. Junior Bolo, like what he does for this footy side is unbelievable for his position that he plays, like the confidence that he brings. So I think the Eels will be too strong here, mate.